We sell in a ton of different categories and a ton of different items, but this one single item here we're going to talk about, we've sold over $100,000 worth of them without a problem, and we continually sell them almost on a daily basis. Hey, it's Don. Today we're going to talk about something we sell constantly and who's made us over $100,000 in sales. Now today we're going to look at some of our button sales. This is just a shirt button. It's an early one. It's what's called a staff officer button from about 1875. Now the type, what it is or not, doesn't matter. It's specifically buttons that we're talking about, clothing buttons. Buttons like this have made us tens of thousands of dollars. In the last 2.5 years alone, just the last 2.5 years, we've sold over $100,000 on all platforms, and just on eBay alone, we've done $80,000 in just shirt buttons. Now, and that's, again, in just about 2.5 years time frame. Now, we did invest some money into it to begin with. We did sink $15,000 into buying a massive collection from several different people, and that's where most of the buttons came from. We do still buy them all the time. We're going to hop over to eBay, and I'm going to literally show you last year alone, just last year's, just our button sales. You can see without a doubt that if you sell the right items and know enough about those items, that you can still make a good amount of money. Again, this is a small percentage of what we sell overall. There are other categories that we sell 2 and 3 times the amount of items as we do of buttons. So it just depends on the type of item, your experience, how much of it you can get, how you sell it, your keywords and stuff, for you to be able to make a lot of money for something that most people assume there isn't much money involved in. In some weeks, we've been able to sell $5,000 alone just in this one type of item also. So I'm just in my eBay store right now, and I've just went in and went to my manage all orders. Anybody can do this for any item you got in your store as long as you have that type of item listed in the title. You can, I think, maybe sort it down by, no, you can't. So item title, and I think some of these you might be able to adjust a little bit depending on how old you're looking. I'm looking for just last year. So this is every listing I sold last year that was a button, literally a clothing button. These are all clothing buttons that sold last year alone. I sold almost 1,000 individual selling lines of buttons. So that's 1,000 orders roughly of buttons, and some of those had multiple buttons sold at the very same time as well. Now I've blocked out the names, and unfortunately eBay must have had some major crash or glitch, because a couple weeks ago I was able to see the images from last year on these very same ones. I know many times I'll be looking in Terapeak and the photos are gone, making the information in Terapeak completely useless for most people, including myself, for many items. But anyway, I've blocked out the names and the zip codes just for safety issues. But as you can see, they all start off with, you know, my numbers. We'll look at them a little better just in a minute here on a breakdown sheet. I've downloaded all this information from eBay, but there's 1,000 buttons that sold. I want you to see the value of them. It's all still live. I'm just showing you straight off. Again, these are just buttons, which is a small percentage of the type of items that we sell in general. We can sell 3 times this in another niche very easily of what I'm going to show you here in a year, easily. I'll get some questions and things like that in here too, but most of these folks have been buying from me. Unfortunately, I had to block off the names, which covers up some of the aspect that tells you that there's a bunch of repeat buyers in here, and more repeat buyers in buttons than almost any other category that I sell in all honesty. The vast majority of people that buy buttons from me are repeat customers, like 80% or some really high number overall. So this is a year's worth of sales. Now I also, as I said, I downloaded the information. So what we're looking at here is the exact same listings. You can see the names. They're all buttons. This is from last year. This is downloaded straight from eBay from that same screen. And as you can see, there's 1,000 or so buttons in here. I've broken them down. I've removed anything that was, you know, extra lines or anything else like that. You'll see a bunch of gaps where there'll be one price here and the rest do not have a price. It's one sale to one person. So all the ones underneath this price here are all going to the same person. So this person bought a 19th century letter L seal crest button, a vintage H seal crest button, a French business school button, a British crest or livery button, 2 more livery buttons, silver plated British officers button, lovely ladies, head liberty star button, Civil War time frame. Well, actually after. French business or school crown button, and then a Lozier store large coat button, which is a department store in France. So that person spent $313 in just buttons in January. Well, this actually goes just a hair past January. I guess that's the yeah, it was sold on and paid for on the 31st. So these are tracking dates and things like that, a delivery time frame. So you can see this one was sold, this person was sold on the 29th of December of 2022. So, and if you look through here, they're all legit sales. This is all the sales in buttons. And let's just flip back down to the bottom here. Again, it's a long list, but these are just buttons we sold just last year. Now, this is just the price of the button right here, $30,672 in button sales. That's how much just in buttons I sold last year, just in this one single account on one single platform. We did over 40 grand in buttons. And that's a small percentage, as I said, of what we sold overall in the other categories. I sell in 50 different categories. This is just one single category. With postage, it came to $35,000 in buttons, including postage. Again, I don't worry about postage. You can see all the sales tax and tax rates on here. The big factor here is this is an area that I knew if I could get enough of them and I knew enough about them, I would be able to make a decent amount of money. Now, in this case, 2 years and I think 4 or 5 months ago, we invested $15,000 into buttons. I've been into buttons since, geez, a couple of years probably before I met my wife, possibly even. You know, we're talking heading on 30 years I've been into buttons. So it's an area that I've always been in. I've went to button shows. I was a member of the National Button Society and things like that. I'm in other groups and other societies for other collectibles too. So just because I'm talking buttons here, the same principle we do in any category I'm able to do it in. Postcards, trade cards, militaria, stamps, coins. Even if I don't list them on eBay, I'm still doing the exact same process and step here. We do list on other platforms, obviously. eBay isn't the only source for a lot of things. They are for some, but this is a prime example, though, of digging into a category and figuring out more information than your competitors do. This is also a category that I am heavily invested into research material and, you know, time in the beginning. Nowadays, I don't really have to do too much investment into time because most of the stuff I run into, I've had many, many times. You'll see basically the same thing. Here's a person that bought Knox College, Galesburg, Illinois uniform buttons. They bought 3 basically identical ones there. Here's somebody who bought 2 trolley car employee buttons. So that's usually what you'll see. And I do sell a lot of multiple buttons, you know, to the same person. Here's somebody who bought Republic of Panama buttons. Whole bunch of them. You can see how many there are there. And in fact, there's 2 separate purchases from the same person. So he bought 45, 2 of them for 45, and then he came back in, and this was on, let's see here, January 21st. So on the same day, then he realized I had more, and he came back and bought those as well too. So, and like this person here, they bought 2 different buttons, both from Detroit and Buffalo Steamboat Company. So that's typical of what you'll see. So I don't usually just sell one to one person. Even if there's single sales in here, I'll usually have those people coming back. These are all collectors, and these are collectors that are very specific in the military or transportation or steamship or train or even, you know, airplane buttons. There's people who collect airliner buttons, telegraph operating companies, foreign agents and foreign companies, hotel staff had buttons on, you name it. I've got some hotel ones up here. There's some tobacco related ones. There's lighthouse service, you know, Rock Island Railroad, Vermont Ransom Guards, you name it, I've sold it. United States of Venezuela, Army officers, and you can see the prices, $40, $22, $22.50, $13.50. It doesn't take much to make money back on something, on any category, if you know enough about it. Again, I spent $15,000 investment. We've since bought, you know, close to $20,000 worth of buttons. We paid for the buttons. I listed some very expensive ones right after we got them to get our money back. Because with $15,000, I don't want to have $15,000 sitting on a shelf. In just a couple of months, just a hair over 2 months, 2 months and like a week, we got all of our money back for the initial investment of $15,000. So in 2 months, basically, we sold 10 grand, I think, the first month, and more than that, almost 10, 11, 12 grand the next month. So we got all of our money back. We paid for the listing fees. We paid for our time. About made a profit in just 2.5 months. Now, most of my items, I don't care if I get a profit back right away. If I'm investing 15 grand or 20 grand or 30 grand, I want to know I'm going to get a big chunk of that back, since that's not the kind of money you want to have sitting around. I don't care how much money you have. You don't want that kind of money just sitting around. So, again, I'm not saying everybody can grab some huge, massive stacks of these, but before we bought that massive stack, I've been selling buttons forever. It was thousands of dollars, not tens of thousands like I am now, but thousands of dollars a year in buttons. It's a good way to make money because most people undervalue them. They don't know what they are. There's too much learning curve, and that goes for postcards, action figures, toys of any type, sports-related cards, any type of paper. The same standpoints, the same everything relates to them just as much as it does to this single oddball category. So $30,000 in just one single category on one single platform is a good plus. Now, there's people that could probably make a living off of that amount and just use this as their business. I personally love selling in a lot of different categories. I never pinhole myself because I run into so many different types of items. And again, the more you know, the better you will do. When you first start off doing reselling in general, no matter what you're going to resell, you're going to be slammed by a learning curve. You're going to spend the majority of your time looking up and doing all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if you plan on doing this reselling for a living, going forward for the rest of your days on this planet here, all the investment and all those hours and hours and hours of time you put in learning and figuring out how to source stuff like this or whatever you're going to source, it pays off. Nowadays, I can pick up, finding inventory is not a problem at all. I have no issues. I've turned away people left and right. If I'm out, I don't buy everything. I really don't need much more inventory at this present time right now. Again, because we buy so much, I've got a huge building of inventory, and that's not even all of our inventory. So finding inventory is not going to be the problem once you've done this for a little while, because you'll figure out the ins and outs and stuff like that. There's, like, if you're a sports person, there's sports card shows. That's a great place. Paper items, there's paper shows, flea markets and stuff like that. These items are items that could show up at a estate sale very easily because we've bought massive quantities at estate sales. They show up at specific niche shows, specific niche members meetings and club meetings and things like that. And that goes for anything. There's sports card collectors clubs, comic book collectors clubs, all that sort of stuff. Just like trying to find comic books. If you know how to do it, you can find comic books like constantly. How do you think a comic book dealer stays in business? I know they've got a shop for the most part, but there's ways they get those new customers in to sell them their comic books so they can turn around and sell them and make the profits off of them. That's what we do for everything. To me, $30,000 in one category like this is pretty good. Overall, in 2 years and 4 months or so, we've done over $100,000 in just buttons. Just shirt buttons off your back. Just shirt buttons that would have been on your shirt, your uniform or a coat or a jacket. It could be a lady's button from fancy clothing or something along that line. Buttons go way, way back. I've had buttons going back to the 1600s and before. There's buttons that are worth $4,000 or $5,000. Now, again, I'm showing you buttons here. I'm showing you the buttons, but pretty much any category you can think of has similar ratios of valuables, of items that are worth a ton of money versus not, in the whole works. Any category that you can sell 30,000 of or 5,000 of is just as good as anything else. What the big point here is once you've learned a category like this or any other category, you pick another one and you keep adding to it. So you may make 4,000 here, 5,000 there. At the end of the day, though, it all adds up into the income of your store. So I could go through here and we could look at other different items that I'm selling, but the point being, it's the same ratio here. Other categories I'm selling $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in the same types of items over and over again. Repeat customers, quantity of the same items, and all that sort of stuff. That's how this works. It's not easy. It's not you're just going to start reselling and you're going to make a ton of money. To be able to sell $30,000 in any category you're selling in, any category, it's going to take you a long time. It took us 3 years to come out of worrying constantly where the money for our bills was going to come. We put in more hours then. 80 hours a week would have been nothing in some points, I would say. But again, it's all paid off now. Most people get discouraged in the beginning because they see all the stuff you've got to do, the learning curve you've got to do. But if you can get past that learning curve, past that aspect of doing it, and realize that in the long run, this is going to pay off. Resellers have to invest time in the beginning to be able to hone their skills, to figure out stuff, to be able to advance their business to a point that you're going to be able to make a ton of money off of single items that no one in their right mind would think you could make a living off of. And that's how I came to be, was by doing stuff like this, by, buying in quantity when I can. $15,000 worth of buttons for us was over 500 pounds of uniform buttons, and there's hundreds of buttons per pound easily, like 400 or 500 or some huge amount of number. So we've got a huge, massive amount of buttons, and even 2.5 years almost later, we've only listed about 10% of them. Not even that much, maybe about 8%. So when I haven't even touched the bottom of the barrel at all on listing them. It takes time, obviously, and stuff to do anything in reselling, to list any item in a mass quantity. At this point, I'm probably one of the biggest sellers of this type of item on eBay in general. And it took time, but being able to do that has grown my business immensely, because now that I've got this category, lock and keyed, I took another category and another category, and this wasn't my first option. We've been selling paper items for, almost 30 some odd years at this point. So, the more you learn, the better you're going to do. And this is just a perfect example of what somebody can do selling an item that no one in their right mind would think you can make that kind of money off. Just a little tiny button that would have been sewn onto someone's shirt. Well, there we have it. Hopefully that gave you some ideas, some thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends. Just been walking around for a while. Medieval style paintings. It looks like they're actual canvas too, a whole bunch of them. No idea what that one is, but just some fabulous piece of wood craftsmanship. Tons of mantles upstairs. Look at these pieces. I mean, those are just incredible. Huge, 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 huge. 4-way stop signs. Cement pieces from the facing of a church or something. It's like a dragon back here in the back. Just incredible amounts of stuff.